Humans have been unpredictable. Traz snorted a wet, bubbling noise through his breathing mask. Unpredictable. They're just pests with basic tech and big egos. This execution will break their spirit and end their silly rebellion. I didn't say anything. I was the senior intelligence analyst, but the Supreme Commander never cared about my opinion. Today was no different. My name is Zero Vin, and I've spent 27 cycles studying humans, 26 more than anyone else here. The execution platform is ready, Supreme Commander, reported General Dre. It will be broadcast on all frequencies. The humans will see what defiance costs. Excellent, Traz said. Security, triple-layered force fields, for squads of elite guards, and aerial drones. Nothing can go wrong. I almost laughed. I wanted to say, nothing can go wrong is always a sign something will dot. Just then Traz turned to me. Senior Analyst Ven, he said, his compound eyes locking on me. You've been quiet. What do you think? Everyone turned to look at me. He wasn't asking because he cared. It was a trap. He liked making people squirm. I spoke carefully. The humans have a saying, sir, beware of Greeks bearing gifts. Traz wheezed a laugh through his mask. Greeks' gifts were executing their generals, not accepting presents. It's from their history, I said. The Greeks were an old civilization. Spare me the history lesson. Traz cut me off. Will the execution work or not? I paused. Their capture was too easy, sir. The room went silent. Too easy. Admiral Pelzer repeated yes. Generals Takita, Rivera, and Novak are some of the most skilled human commanders. They've avoided capture for years. But all three were caught at once, at Proxima Station. It feels too convenient. Their ship was damaged, Traz said. We outnumbered them 10-1. And yet, I replied, they all survived with barely a scratch when our orders are to kill human commanders on sight. Are you saying, General Dre growled, that our soldiers disobeyed orders? No, sir. I'm saying maybe the humans wanted to be captured. They all burst out laughing. Even Admiral Pelzer. Traz wiped tears from his eyes. You've clearly spent too much time studying humans, he said. They're clever, sure, for primitives. But they're not playing some grand strategy game. We won. They lost. Tomorrow we kill their leaders and crush the rebellion. That's it. I nodded and stayed quiet. There was no point arguing. The execution would happen no matter what I said. After the meeting, I went back to my quarters and pulled up the security footage from the prisoners' cells. They were kept in separate rooms, divided by energy fields that should prevent communication. But they didn't seem worried at all. General Takita sat calmly, eyes closed, calmer, meditating. Her posture was perfect, her black hand-silver hair tied back neatly, even though she was about to die. General Rivera was pacing, stopping now and then to do push-ups or stretch. He looked strong and completely relaxed. And General Novak, she was humming a song while drawing on the wall with her finger. I zoomed in on what she was drawing. They weren't random marks. They were equations, complex formulas I didn't understand. Just then my communicator buzzed. It was Razzie, my only real friend in the security team. You need to see this, he said quickly. Meet me in monitoring section 4. 20 minutes later I stood next to Razzie, watching holographic maps of communication signals across the Empire. What am I looking at? I asked. The patterns, Razzie replied, his antenna twitching nervously. Since we announced the execution, human military activity has dropped by 17% everywhere, looks like. They're in shock, I guessed, because their leaders were captured. Razzie didn't answer. He just stared at the screen. No, Razzie said. Look closer. They're not retreating. They're repositioning. He was right. The human fleets were pulling back, but not toward their home systems. Instead, they were forming new patterns, surrounding star systems that seemed random at first glance. And look at this, Razzie continued, pulling up another screen. Unusual energy readings from the prison transport ship that brought the generals here. What kind of readings? No idea. The system labeled it a malfunction. A cold shiver ran down my back. Show me the prisoner transfer logs. Rozik's fingers flew over the console. The ship had 27 crew members. Standard procedure. Prisoners stay in stasis during travel. Were they in stasis? The logs say yes. And who confirmed it? Razik checked. No one. The ship's AI verified it. The ship's AI, I repeated slowly. You mean the AI the humans built? Razik's eyes widened. You think they... I interrupted. We need to inspect that ship, now. But it was already too late. By the time we reached the docking bay, the transport had been cleared and repurposed. Its systems were wiped for security. This is bad, I muttered. Should we tell Supreme Commander Traz? Razik asked. I thought about it. With what proof? Patterns? Suspicion? Traz would ship us off to scrub pipes in some mining colony. So what do? We get ready, I said darkly. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced my room, going over everything I knew about the three generals. General Akko T, a master of deception. She once destroyed 3 of our battle groups by luring them into asteroid fields loaded with hidden mines. Cruiser by tricking the crew into thinking they were surrounded by a huge human fleet. In truth, he only had 2 small fighters with fake signals. General Lena Novak, an engineer and innovator. She used hegemony tech against us, often improving it along the way. Together, they were the heart of the human resistance for 8 years, and tomorrow we would either execute them or they would destroy us. I tried one last time to warn Supreme Commander Traz. I sent him a secure message explaining my concerns. His reply was instant and predictable. Analyst Ven, your concerns are noted. Report to medical for psychological evaluation after the ceremony. Your obsession with humans has compromised your judgment. Morning came, as always, right on time in the artificial cycle of a space station. The execution plaza was packed with top hegemony officials, military brass, and representatives from allied species. Floating camera drones buzzed through the air, broadcasting the event live across thousands of worlds. I stood 2 levels above the platform, assigned to surveillance with a perfect view of everything. Razik was posted across the plaza on the opposite side, part of the security team. We shared a brief glance before focusing on our tasks. The prisoners were brought out. The crowd erupted, shouting, booing, jeering. The hegemony had spent decades teaching its people to hate humans, and today, that hatred was in full force. General T walked with calm dignity, her head high. General Rivera followed, smirking and winking at officials as he passed, making them flinch. General Novak came last, her sharp eyes scanning everything: the guards, the drones, the layout of the force fields. They were strapped to execution poles in the center of the platform. Supreme Commander Traz stepped forward, his ceremonial armor gleaming. His amplified voice echoed across the plaza and to every screen in the galaxy. Humans, he boomed, you have been found guilty of crimes against the hegemony, terrorism, rebellion, defiance of the natural order. Any last words? General T answered first, her voice calm. We thank you for this opportunity, Supreme Commander. He tilted his head, confused by the gratitude. General Rivera added, you did exactly what we hoped. You gathered your leaders, you broadcast your power. General Novak finished, and you brought us exactly where we needed to be. Traz laughed, a hiss through his breathing mask. And where is that? Human at the end of your primitive empire, General T said. And the beginning of something new. Then she spoke a single word in the human language, Japanese, Sakura. Suddenly, alarms blared, the force fields around the platform flickered and died. The restraints holding the generals snapped open. What's happening? Traz shouted, stepping back in panic as the humans stepped forward, free, and I knew. God help me. I knew. It's a trap, I whispered. But no one could hear me over the chaos exploding all around us from the crowd. Dozens of hegemony officials stood at once, their movements strangely exact, too precise. Their posture shifted. Then they drew hidden weapons. The disguised humans pulled out their weapons and began locking down the plaza. Sleeper agents, I muttered, horrified. They weren't just in the crowd, they were everywhere, disguised as various alien species using advanced holographic tech. Humans had infiltrated every level of this ceremony. Even the drones floating above us, supposedly broadcasting the event across the galaxy, suddenly changed direction. They attached themselves to key structures around the plaza. They weren't cameras, they were bombs. Then General Novak pulled a small device from somewhere inside her body. It must have been hidden internally, beyond the reach of our scanners. She tapped in a sequence of commands all around us. The station began shutting down, life support flickered. Gravity stuttered. Emergency doors slammed shut, cutting off hegemony reinforcements from the plaza. You fools, General Rivera shouted, laughing as hegemony soldiers tried to surround Traz. Did you really think we'd let our best generals be captured unless we wanted it that way? Kill them, Traz screamed. Kill them now. The guards opened fire, but the humans moved fast, like they'd trained for this exact moment. They ducked behind the execution poles for cover. More sleeper agents inside the crowd sprang into action, picking off hegemony officers with precise, well-aimed shots. Then General T raised her hand, holding what looked like a hegemony command module. We've taken control of your station's defense systems, she said. Your own weapons are now ours. As if to prove it, the auto turrets in the plaza turned and opened fire on hegemony troops. I flattened myself against a wall, trying to stay out of the line of fire. Across the plaza I saw Razik doing the same. He caught my eye and motioned toward an emergency exit. I nodded and began crawling toward it. Over the loudspeakers, General Novak's voice echoed through the chaos, calm and steady. For 8 years you underestimated us. You called us primitive. Today that mistake ends. I reached Razik. Together we slipped through the emergency hatch into a dim maintenance corridor. We need to find an escape pod, Razik panted. It won't help, I replied. Don't you get it? This whole station is compromised. They've been planning this for months, maybe even years. Suddenly, the station shook from a massive explosion. We were thrown to the ground. What was that? Razik shouted. I pulled up the data feed on my wrist device, the main reactor. It's overloading, I said, my voice tightened. Oh gods, look. On the external cams, dozens, no, hundreds of human warships dropped out of hyperspace all around the station. Huge ships, new designs we'd never seen before. They're not here to rescue the generals, I realized. The generals were never prisoners. This is a full-scale attack on the hegemony's leadership. Another blast. The lights flickered. Life support alarms howled through the corridors. "We have to move," Razik shouted, dragging me up. We ran. The evacuation area was ahead, already crowded but calm. People were boarding escape pods in an orderly way. "All hegemony personnel, especially civilians, please proceed to the escape zones," said General T's voice over the comms. "You will not be harmed. Do not resist. They're letting us go," Razik asked, stunned. "Psychological warfare," I replied. "Rivera's specialty. Spare the lower ranks. Target the leaders. It causes panic. Splinters the chain of command, makes defections more likely." As we reached the loading zone, I saw something strange. Humans in hegemony uniforms, but different. Sleeker, modified, armed. They weren't just soldiers. "Special forces," I whispered. "They've been here for months." A human officer approached us, weapon in hand but not raised. Calm, controlled. "Names and ranks," she said. Razik said, clearly nervous. "Security, level 3 Zarven," I said. "Senior intelligence analyst." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "The xenologist, the human expert." I nodded slowly. She tapped something on her wrist. "General Novak wants to speak with you," she said. "This way." "And my friend?" I asked, nodding toward Razik. "He can board an escape pod." Razik looked torn. I gave him a quick nod. "Go. You can't help here." He hesitated, then stepped back into the evac line. I followed the officer deeper into the station. She led me through damaged corridors, past stunned survivors, until we reached the former command center of Supreme Commander Trass. Now it belonged to General Lena Novak. She was sitting at Trass's desk, surrounded by human officers working at the consoles. "Analyst Ven," she said, greeting me like an old colleague. "I've read your work on human psychology and military theory. Quite impressive. You came closer than anyone in the hegemony to truly understanding us." "Not close enough," I said, glancing at the ruined command center. She smiled. "True." She gestured to a seat. "Please sit." I sat. Oddly, I felt calm. "May I ask?" I said, looking her in the eye. "What happens now?" "That depends," Novak said, leaning forward. "How do you feel about consulting work?" "With humans," she corrected. "Your understanding of both our species makes you valuable, Zarelven. And we're going to need cultural translators in the new galactic order." "New order," I repeated. "So this wasn't just a strike against leadership. This is full-blown regime change." Novak smiled. Insightful. Just then, General Rivera stepped into the room. "The Supreme Commander is secured. Takita has full control of the broadcast system. We're ready." Novak nodded and turned to the large view screen. It lit up to show General T, standing in the execution plaza now under complete human control. Behind her, on his knees and bound, was Supreme Commander Traz. "People of the galactic hegemony," T said to the camera, her voice echoing across the same channels that had been set up for a human execution. "Today marks the end of tyranny and the beginning of cooperation. For too long, the hegemony ruled through fear and suppression. That ends now." She gestured to Traz. "Your Supreme Commander will stand trial for war crimes. Unlike him, we do not execute prisoners for spectacle. Justice will be served fairly, and with due process." The camera panned out to show dozens of captured hegemony officials. "To all remaining forces, stand down. Your central command has fallen. We now control your defense networks and communications. Continued resistance will only cause more loss needlessly." The broadcast went on. But I turned to Novak. "You've been planning this since the day the hegemony declared humans unfit for galactic citizenship." She nodded. "We knew we couldn't beat you in numbers or tech, not at first, so we adapted, we infiltrated, waited." "Why now?" I asked. Rivera stepped in. "Because now we're ready. We're tearing down the caste system the hegemony used to control dozens of species. In its place, we're building a federation built on equality and cooperation." "That sounds suspiciously noble," I said dryly. Novak laughed. "Humans contain multitudes. Analyst Ven, we can be vengeful but also merciful, cruel and kind. But more than anything we value freedom. For ourselves and for others. And if I say no to your offer," then Rivera said calmly, "you'll be processed with the other non-combatants and released into neutral space, with enough supplies to start over. We're not the hegemony." I looked around the command center, now entirely run by humans, working smoothly in a station never meant for them on the screen. The captured rulers of what used to be the most powerful government in the galaxy. "I'll need time," I said. "Of course," Novak replied. "But not too much. The galaxy's changing, Ven, and I'd rather have you with us than against us." They escorted me back to the evacuation zone. As I stepped into the escape pod, I couldn't help thinking about the irony. The execution meant to destroy human hope had instead destroyed the hegemony. The trap set for humanity had caught us instead in our own arrogance. As the escape pod launched and drifted into the blackness of space, I remembered the old human saying I'd once tried to explain to Traz: "Beware of Greeks bearing gifts." Now, I finally understood what it really meant. The pod drifted toward the fringe worlds. Guided by autopilot, I sat in silence, alone, watching the stars blur past. Status indicators blinked calmly. An automated distress beacon repeated its signal into the void. Behind me, the once mighty hegemony command station was just a distant glow, now under human control. They hadn't destroyed it, they'd taken it intact, which somehow was even more terrifying. My comm device buzzed. That should have been impossible. We were far from any relay station. No one should have been able to reach me. Analyst Venn, came a voice I recognized. General Rivera. Having second thoughts, I stared at the comm in disbelief. How are you even contacting me? This pod only has emergency comms. Rivera laughed. You still don't understand, do you? We've had access to your networks for years. There's nothing in your communication systems we can't tap into. The meaning hit me hard. If they could do this, what else had they been quietly controlling all this time? What do you want? I asked. Your pod will cross paths with one of our ships in 40 minutes. If you want, the captain has orders to bring you aboard, or you can continue to the fringe worlds. I thought about it. The fringe was lawless, dangerous. My odds of survival out there were slim, especially now that the hegemony had fallen. Why me? I asked. Surely there are officials with more valuable intel than I have. We don't need more intel, Rivera said. We already have it all. What we do need are people who can see past propaganda. You studied us. You understood us. You were right and they were wrong. I couldn't argue with that. If I board, what happens next? You'll meet Admiral Frost, he said. She's overseeing the transition of power. A new name. Not Takita, not Rivera, not Novak. There are more of you in command than we realized, I said. Rivera chuckled. So many more. Your 40 minutes start now. Analyst Venn, choose wisely. The comm went silent again. I sat there, alone in a drifting pod. 40 minutes to decide the path of my life, to choose between a dying past and an uncertain future. The uncertain future facing hegemony loyalists and the idea of working with the very species that had just outplayed us completely kept turning in my mind. I spent 39 minutes weighing my options. In the 40th, I reached for the controls and changed the pod's course to intercept the incoming human vessel. The ship that appeared on my screen was unlike anything I'd seen in any hegemony intel briefings. It was massive, at least 3 times the size of any known human capital ship, and its design. It wasn't the usual blocky utilitarian military style we'd come to expect from humans. It was sleek, elegant, purposeful. Hegemony escape pod, a calm voice said over the comms. This is us, Horizon. Prepare for tractor beam lock. A soft blue glow wrapped around my pod, and I felt a gentle pull as the massive ship drew me in. The docking bay was enormous, filled with small craft and human personnel moving quickly and efficiently. No one paid much attention as my pod settled onto the deck. The hatch opened with a soft hiss. I stepped out slowly, hands visible. A human woman in a dark blue uniform approached, flanked by 2 security officers. Analyst, Zal Vent, she asked. I nodded. Double quotes, Commander Eliza Kim. Admiral Frost is expecting you. Please follow me. As we walked through the corridors of the Horizon, I couldn't help noticing the tech. Much of it was clearly derived from hegemony systems, but it had been upgraded, enhanced. Some of it I didn't recognize at all. Your ship, I said cautiously. It's more advanced than anything we believed humans could build. Commander Kim smiled faintly. The hegemony only saw what we wanted you to see. This vessel's been in service for 3 years. That's impossible, I said, stunned. Our surveillance would have detected it. Your surveillance saw exactly what our decoys wanted you to see, she interrupted. The real fleet was built in deep space, far beyond your senses. We entered a lift and ascended through the heart of the ship. When the doors opened, I was led into the command center. Unlike the chaotic hierarchical layout of hegemony bridges, this space was calm, controlled. Stations were arranged in clean, circular layers around a glowing central HOLO-display. At its center stood a tall human woman with short white hair and piercing blue eyes. She turned as we approached. Analyst Venn, she greeted me. I'm Admiral Mara Frost. Thank you for accepting our invitation. I gave a respectful nod. Your invitation was persuasive, Admiral. She gave a thin smile. Please, there's something I want to show you. We approached the central display. A detailed holographic map of former hegemony territory shimmered before us. Red markers pulsed across the sectors. What am I looking at? I asked. Operation Trojan Horse, Admiral Frost replied. Each red marker represents a facility or capital ship secured by human forces or our allies. I stared. There were hundreds of markers, spread across every major system the hegemony had once controlled. This is impossible, I whispered. You couldn't have organized a takeover of this scale without us noticing. We didn't have to, said a familiar voice behind me. I turned to see General Novak entering the room. The operation began years ago, she said. Infiltration was phase 1. Today was just the reveal. Admiral Frost nodded. Novak's engineering teams developed the holographic disguise tech good enough to fool even your bioscanners. We placed operatives inside your government, your military. Some rose to high ranks. The executions, I realized. They were the signal. Exactly, Novak said. We needed your leadership gathered in one place, and we needed a live broadcast to send the activation phrase, Sakura Blossom. I remembered General T's final words. A poetic choice, Frost added. In our culture, the Sakura represents both beauty and impermanence. The hegemony believed itself eternal. We found that symbolic. I turned back to the map, watching how they'd carved through our networks like a surgeon with a scalpel. You prioritized communications and defense infrastructure first, I said. Naturally, Novak replied. Cut off their ability to coordinate, and even the strongest empire starts to fall apart. Frost gestured to the map again. It shifted, highlighting a different region. This is where we'd like your help, Analyst Ven, the Krell Dominion. I stiffened. The Krell, I said quietly. Brutal, loyal enforcers of the hegemony's worst policies. They gained the most from our caste system. They're mobilizing, Frost explained. They want to claim territory. Fill the power vacuum. We need your insight. You've studied their psychology. Your work on their social hierarchy, Novak added, was very helpful. I examined the tactical display. The Krell fleets were forming uptight clusters around outer systems. Standard Krell strategy: concentrate power, strike hard, intimidate all opposition. They're preparing a massive show of strength, I said. They believe overwhelming force prevents resistance. Can they be negotiated with? Frost asked. I hesitated, then answered honestly. The Krell respects power, not talk. If you want to negotiate, you'll have to demonstrate undeniable superiority. We can do that, Frost said confidently. No, I corrected her, watching the tactical map update again. You don't need to outgun them. I paused, then smiled faintly. You need to outthink them. You're wrong about the Krell, I told them. To them, power isn't just about winning battles. It's about showing you could destroy someone but choose not to. It's about restraint, not just strength. Admiral Frost and General Novak looked at each other. Interesting, Frost said. That fits more with how we think, definitely not how the hegemony did things. The hegemony never understood the Krell, I explained. They saw them as muscle brutal and simple. But Krell culture has its own rules. One of the most important is the idea of the honored enemy. And how does someone become an honored enemy? Novak asked. You have to defeat their champion in a one-on-one challenge, I said. Then you spare their life. Admiral Frost frowned. You're saying we should challenge their leader to a duel, not a fight of strength, I replied. Greg Thork, their current warlord, is known for being strong, but he's unsure of his intelligence. Challenge his mind, not his body. That'll throw him off. Novak smiled. This is exactly why we need you, Ven. None of this is in our intelligence files. Because the hegemony didn't care, I said bitterly. They never tried to understand their allies, only to control them. Frost looked at me closely. You don't sound very loyal to the empire you worked for. I wasn't loyal to the empire, I replied. I was loyal to knowledge. The hegemony stopped me from sharing my research because it didn't fit their views. I studied humans because I was curious, but they called it inappropriate. Frost smiled. Well, now you're free to study us properly. Over the next few days, I worked closely with the human command. I gave advice about how different species might react to the fall of the hegemony. Some, like the Volofi, were happy about the change. Others, like the Krell, weren't. The humans gave me my own room on the horizon, and I was allowed to move freely through much of the ship. At first they watched me closely, but over time, the surveillance became less obvious. They were starting to trust me. On the 5th day, I was invited to watch a live message from Admiral Frost to Warlord Greg Thork. She had taken my advice and was challenging the Krell leader to a battle of wits, not weapons. The rules are simple, Frost told Thork, who filled the screen with his huge frame. Pick any strategy game. If you win, we'll pull our fleet from Krell space. If I win, you'll join our new Galactic Federation and send a delegate to help shape it. Thork snorted. Why should I agree? I could crush your fleet now. You could try, Frost said calmly. But before you decide, watch this. Novak tapped to control. Another screen came on showing a heavily armed Krell base. Then, all its weapons turned inward, pointing at their own buildings. What trick is this? Thork demanded. Not a trick, Frost replied. Technology. General Novak found a way to hack hegemony-built systems like yours. The base's guns stayed locked on important targets, but didn't fire. We could destroy all your military bases at once, Frost said. But we won't. Instead, I offer you a fair challenge, mind to mind. Or, are you afraid? It was brilliant. She'd shown strengths but also honor, and she spoke the way the Krell understood. Thork growled. I accept. The game will be cracks. I leaned over to Novak. Cracks is like human chess, but with random elements to mimic battle chaos. She nodded. Frost is a chess grandmaster. She learned fast. The match was set for the next day. As we left the meeting room, Admiral Frost turned to me. Do you play Karak's Analyst, Ven? I've studied it, I said, but I've never had anyone to play with. Then tonight, she said, you'll coach me. I need to understand not just the rules, but what each move means to the Krell. That evening we sat in her quarters. A glowing Karak's board hovered between us. I showed her how the Krell think, how certain moves are seen as clever or cowardly. How their culture sees strategy as a form of honor. This opening here is called the Vextwell, I said. Showing the move, it gives up early advantage but sets you up for a win later. It's respected by the Krell. Frost smiled. Like offering 3 generals as bait. To capture an empire. Exactly, I said. We kept playing. And as we did, I started to feel something I hadn't in years. Admiral Frost was smart, thoughtful, and open to learning. All things the hegemony leadership had never been. I hesitated, then asked, "May the first ask a personal question?" "Go ahead," she said. "Why did humans hide their true power for so long? You could have won this war years ago." She thought for a moment. "We needed more than strength," she said. "We needed time. Time to build trust with other species. Time to make sure that when the hegemony fell, it wouldn't just be replaced by us as the next empire." "That's a noble idea," I said. She smiled again. "It's also smart. If we'd moved too early, everyone would have fought us, but now, they might just choose to follow us." "You're wrong," I said. "Real peace doesn't come from control. That was the hegemony's mistake all along." The next day, Admiral Frost faced Warlord Thok in the Karax match. It was shown live across the former hegemony's space, a powerful symbol of the new era beginning. Frost played with skill and respect. She used classic Krell strategies but also introduced clever new moves. When she finally trapped Thok in a position he couldn't win from, she didn't finish him off. Instead, she offered a draw. It saved his pride but still gave humanity what it needed. "You play with the heart of a Krell warrior," Thok said, with a nod of respect. "The Dominion will send representatives to your convention." When the match ended, people on the horizon cheered. The Krell had been the last major group holding out against the new Federation. Now, with them on board, the transition of power could move forward without war. I stood quietly at the edge of the celebration. General Rivera found me there. "Your work with Krell culture helped make this happen," he said. "Admiral Frost deserves most of the credit," I replied. "She put it into action." Rivera leaned back against the wall. "Have you thought about our offer? We're building a new diplomatic council. We could use someone like you." I had been thinking about that for days. If I join, what would I actually do? "You'd help us understand the species we're now working with and help them understand us," Rivera said. "We don't want to become another empire. We want to build something fair." "Do you think that's really possible?" I asked. "Real cooperation between so many different kinds of life. We have to believe it's possible," Rivera said. "The other option is just more war." 2 weeks later, I stood in what used to be the hegemony's Grand Government Hall on Axis Prime. Now it had been completely changed. Delegates from 27 different species had gathered to write the new Galactic Federation Constitution. Admiral Frost was now the lead diplomat for humanity. She worked alongside Volwethi, Elder Tress Krell, Sub-Warlord Ma, and others. I had become a special advisor. My job was to help solve cultural problems that could ruin the talks. During one break, I told Frost the Volwethi don't like Article 7. Their people make decisions together, not by majority vote. The way the Federation Council is set up feels wrong to them. Frost nodded. "Suggest a 2-track system," she said. "Use majority vote for everyday decisions, but require full agreement for the big ones. They'll appreciate that," I said. It was hard work, long hours, careful conversations, and trying to make everyone feel heard. But it was also the most meaningful work I'd ever done. For once, my knowledge was being used to connect people, not to find weaknesses. 6 months after the hegemony's fall, the Galactic Federation Charter was signed. The document created a fair government system with representation for every member world. It protected local customs, promoted cooperation, and banned forced interference in other cultures. During the signing, General Takita joined me. "Congratulations, Advisor Ven," she said, using my new title. "We couldn't have done this without your help. This was your win," I told her. "You planned it for years." She shook her head. "Winning the war was easy. Building something better is the real challenge, and that's where you've been essential." We stood together, watching one Sonomi species talking politely with each other. There was still tension, but also hope. "Can I ask something?" I said. "Why did you spare the hegemony leaders after everything they did?" "Some humans wanted revenge," Takita admitted. "But revenge keeps the cycle going. We wanted to show the galaxy that we're not what they said we were: barbaric, hateful, so we proved it. By being merciful." I nodded. I understood now. The real trap wasn't the ambush, it was forcing the hegemony to see their lies exposed. Their propaganda couldn't survive the truth. "Exactly," Takita said, smiling. "Now let's go celebrate." The Krell delegation brought their traditional victory drinks. "Very strong, I hear. Be careful," I warned. "Krell drinks can cause hallucinations in humans. You might want to stick with water." Takita laughed. "See, you're still useful." As we walked through the busy room, I thought back on how far I had come from watching humans as potential enemies to helping them build a better future. The hegemony had planned to kill 3 human generals to show their power. Instead, it became the beginning of their own fall. The trap they thought would crush the rebellion had actually doomed their empire. And what came out of that trap wasn't just a new power, it was a new chance. A chance for peace, for fairness, for something better. And maybe, just maybe, for a galaxy where no one rules by fear ever again.